And we welcome you to United Liberty Radio. This is Joe Olivas.
And Dustin Harris.
Glad to be here with you, Dustin. Sorry I jumped the gun.
I think I was trying to jump in on you.
I
was just so excited. It's Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff happening across the country, and a lot of things that we're seeing in the news, and a lot of things happening. It sparks a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns in my mind about where we're headed as a country, but also at the same time, it sparks in my mind a great desire to fully understand and implement principle-based living in my life.
Right.
I don't want to go through what we've been going through any longer than we're experiencing it, but at the same time, I don't want it to get any worse either. So, in order for me just to cope with what's going on, I need to identify the principles and then be able to convince and educate other individuals on these principles, so that way they can help stem the tide of what's been going on lately.
Well, I am convinced of the scripture that if you are prepared, you shall not fear. And it comes down to when you see things going on in the news. You've got the terrorist bombing in New York. You've got the British petroleum spill in the Gulf. You've got other huge things going on over in Iran. You've got Ahmadinejad or I hope that's what you say his name. I have another name for him, but I won't use it on the air. You've got him speaking at the UN. You've got different things going on across the country, and you see the world in turmoil. North Korea, what they're doing to South Korea. It's an interesting thing to see and to watch, but it always comes back to your personal life. It always comes back to how are you living your life? Are you living it in harmony with the principles that you know to be true? Are you living in accordance with truth, that truth which you know to be right and good? And as more light comes into your life and you try to live that to the best of your ability, you know what? What's going on in the world is a concern. It's something I'm going to continue to strive to fight against the false principles, the violation of true principles that are out there. But bottom line, if I'm living right and I'm helping my wife and my children to live right, and I'm helping my neighbors and such around me on a local level to live right, I can go to bed at night and I can sleep soundly.
Well, I mean, you brought up some of the stuff that was going on, petroleum and things like that are taking place, the oil spill. There are so many different stories right now regarding that particular incident that it's really hard to make heads or tails of it right now. The average citizen, if you will.
I think Bush did it.
Bush did it. He and Obama inherited the oil spill, I think, right?
That's right.
He inherited the oil spill. And Gibbs isn't talking about it.
It's misguided, I think.
Yeah, it's misguided, just like the Arizona immigration law. I mean, there are just so many different things that are going on, or so many different variations of that story. It's hard for the average citizen to go ahead and make heads or tails of it. And so ultimately, if I'm an individual that understands principle and recognize I don't know what it is yet, but the whole thing smells like oil, so I don't know what's going on yet, but I know that principle's being violated, and I can't make heads or tails of it yet. No. So it could be discouraging, but at the same time, I look at what's going on there. I look at how the immigration law is being spun in the mainstream media to make it out to be something that it's not, and I look at that type of scenario and what's taking place, and I look at that and see evidence that things on a local level are not being taken care of.
Yeah.
That's when smaller, much more manageable things that are going to be easier for a citizen to get a hold of and wrap their mind around the principles that are being violated or adhered to, and not getting control of that spirals into these much larger type of incidents. I mean, you've got individuals in Congress that are saying we want to drill because we want to become more self-reliant in our dependence on oil. We don't want to be reliant upon foreign oil. We've heard that that's a national security issue. But at the same time, because of this spill, we don't know if we want to drill. I mean, we want to, but we don't want to. We're going to wait. We're going to see what happens. We're hearing all kinds of different stories. In the meantime, it's very easy for somebody to get completely confused, overwhelmed, and then just check out of the whole fight for freedom and liberty altogether.
So basically what you're saying, Joe, is you're not voting, or you're not rooting for Los Suns tonight.
You know what? I read the story, and I thought that was so funny, just simply because I understand the idea that Arizona wants to show or the Phoenix Suns wants to show as an organization their support for Latin America. You know what? Don't get me wrong. I support Latin America as well. I mean, I was joking around with some family members over the weekend after our last broadcast, and we got into the discussion about this immigration bill. I know you just brought it up, and so. I was just tired of just the ridiculous arguments about it. And I actually changed I put my status on my Facebook profile. I jumped on there, and I knew I was going to get some heat. And I went ahead, because, here, Joe Olivas, right? He's talking about this immigration bill, and everybody wants to hear what the Latin guys got to say. And so I go ahead and put it on there, and immediately I get two conflicting views. I get the people that really love what I've got to say, and, they're the all right and the comments that they make. And then I have one individual who I know quite well, who completely chastised me for this my particular stance. And, I won the debate. He didn't respond, but to make a long story short, but one of the last comments I made, I said, don't forget, I am the son of a U.S. citizen, but I'm also the son of a legal U.S. immigrant. And my mother carried a green card, all her life. And so, again, back to this Suns thing, I know you want to support, or the Phoenix Suns want to support the Latin community, but how much better of an example would that be to the community if we say, hey, we want to support the community, but we support the community adhering and following the law.
Right, the law of the land.
That would have been a much stronger, much more positive stance. But
I agree.
You got to sell basketball tickets, and you got to sell jerseys, and so
you certainly got a little attention this evening. That's for sure.
Well, plus, you develop a new kind of jersey, then if they can think of the sales, they're going to go ahead and sell a whole bunch of that jersey. So.
I can't imagine that's really what they're thinking. Come on. Joe, we've been talking a little bit, on the national scale. There's a lot of things going on, but, when it comes right down to it, again, it all comes down to your individual life. It comes down to your family's life. It comes down to, your religious life, your moral stance on things, your ability to reach out to those around you, whether they be your local government officials, your neighbor, your school officials, whatever it may be, but your ability to have an influence on those around you. In other words, we talk week in, week out about these things that are on a national scale, and they're important. Those things that are violating principle, those things that are adhering to principle. We want to talk about those things and where the Founding Fathers would stand on these things, how they adhere to or violate the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Principles that we love. But, when it comes down to it, it is a local thing. And when I say thing, I mean United in Liberty. It's all about being local. It's all about affecting things at the most local of levels that you possibly can affect them. And there's some news stories that have been coming up over the last couple of weeks that I kind of want to get into a little bit. And I want to start on a national scale and then kind of move down to a more local scale, at least local to the cities that this seems to affect. But one of the things that stuck out to me recently, and I'm sure you've heard about this, Joe, is the FDA planning to limit the salt intake allowed in the processed foods. And of course, they're doing this for good reason. We've got an obese nation, and FDA to the rescue.
Yeah, FDA to the rescue when they go ahead and say, we're going to go ahead and put these regulations in place. We're going to make it so that individuals, corporations that put together these food products are providing full disclosure of ingredients and those types of things. And I'm all for full disclosure of ingredients and those types of things in foods, because let's face it, I may be allergic to something that is in a food that you
But
produce.
Who enforces it? And that's my concern.
Yeah, that's the big problem. And I think agencies or corporations that produce food products, it's in their self-interest to self-regulate. They're going to go ahead and self-regulate themselves just simply because if they don't provide full disclosure for me and one of their food products harms me or one of my children, guess what? We've got the court system to now enforce the fact that you willfully did not disclose or you misrepresented your product. And so people argue for that, but which is regulation. And don't get me wrong, I'm not for complete and total deregulation. I think there's good regulation, but I think there's a fine balance. And when you've got the